Kyle Klingman with Track Wrestling. We have Gary Mayabb. He loves life, and he is the manager of Greco-Roman programs at USA Wrestling. Gary, how are you?
I'm well. You?
You also were an official, college official, and a little bit of heat right now for college officials, how they're calling stalling, especially as it pertains to out of bounds. Step out might be an option. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a tough spot, right? I mean, as I know it right now, there's really three that go-tos. You can either call stalling for the athlete that's pushing them out, or you can call stalling for the athlete that's going out under duress, or you can call it a motion work and put them back to center. And so those three options I think are pretty good options, but at the same point in time, making that call and how well athletes are trained and coached, and then their response to it, they can disguise things very well. So I think that the whole thing is, are you trying to work back in? Are you trying, and again, we have interpretation at college, and we're asking the officials to interpret. Internationally, if you go out, there is a penalty, period, right? And so I think that the interpretation and the choice and the option is part of what that issue is. But needless to say, college wrestling is in a healthy spot right now. So this is another one of those things they probably just have to work through. But I do feel for those officials.
When coaches get on you for a perceived bad call, does that get in your head?
I hope not. Obviously, we want to get it right, but the person, I can't speak for everybody else. I know that I was in locker rooms with officials that have the highest of integrity. So I did not ever get to a point where I would question that. I know that internationally, back in the day, we had some issues, but I never thought that way about the men and women that I was fortunate enough to work with in those locker rooms. So I don't, that part of it, but I know that everybody wants to get it right. The coaches have so much on the line, obviously. The athletes that we truly work for work so incredibly hard that we know how many matches are determined by one point, one call, one moment. And getting those moments right is everything. So I know that trying to get that right, I know that at first when the video review came in and they said we were going to review our own, I was very skeptical at that time. But I would say this, I loved it, because at the end of the day, I don't know how many times you'd get in your car after a hard duel and you'd sit there and go, man, I wish I could look at that one call one more time, because I just don't know. And maybe on the Monday review that we did, especially at 10s, we'd review those matches and go back through them and try to make it right. And I always took a page of notes about officiating better after each match, and because I was coaching at the time, I would take a page of notes on things I learned from the athletes and the coaches, and then take that back to my high school team back in the day. And so those things are mixed with that, but yeah, get it right, and the option of going back and looking at your work helped a lot.
The expectation with officiating is you have to be perfect. Everything else is a mistake. Why would you ever want to put yourself through that and be a referee?
I don't know. Sitting here talking about it, I think that, part of it is just that there's a moment there where attempting to make that right call at the right moment and being in that moment fully engaged is pretty an awesome thought too. I mean, there are parts of it that you can't get any other way. And there's like a lot of jobs and careers out there that are very high performance, and that's one of them that's very high performance, and everybody's got a camera and everybody's got film now. So trying to sweep a difficult call underneath the carpet doesn't work. And so I think that part of it, but back to Greco always, one of the things I love about Greco-Roman wrestling is that you pay a heavy consequence on a small error. You're in so close with each other and ready to lock that any moment of error turns into a consequential effort. And sometimes, I mean, you look at how good these athletes are defending off and countering leg attacks, but a lot of times in Greco, once it starts to go bad, that move finishes so quickly that the chance or opportunity to save yourself is minimal. So maybe it's part of that whole mentality I like.
Matt Lindland just said in an interview that his thought on how to get Greco-Roman to the next level and win medals and compete for world championships as a team is to forego the college system, get guys all bought in on Greco-Roman wrestling early. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I think it's one of the paths. I think that what we've got to do, I mean, many of the challenges that are in front of us in Greco-Roman wrestling are multiple and expandable. And so it makes it global. And I think that we have to attack those challenges globally as well. And so I think that for athletes, a certain amount of athletes that Coach Lindland has seen work for them, yes, go through the pathway outside the normal system and work Greco-Roman up. On the other hand, if you look at our history, and again, we've changed, but as we constantly do, but if you look at our history, many of our greatest Greco athletes went through the system, stayed engaged in Greco to where they did not just totally give it up and then try to come back to it. Because that's one of the issues that Coach Lindland has recognized is that you know, that 2 to 3 years you got to do postgraduate, and then where does the money come from in Greco, right? So that becomes one of those issues. And these issues, again, are multiple, but again, that's one reason why I tend to agree with one of the areas that coaches put down. That's, you know, we've got to create multiple pathways into the pipeline to get them to an athlete that can train and go full-time Greco at some point, whether it's older or younger.
Is there a reality in Greco that we have to face? Of course, in the United States, it's about American football. Is Greco like rugby, where it's not the mainstream, and if you're trying to be the best rugby country in the world, it just might not work because we care about American football? Is that what Greco-Roman's facing?
It may be what we're facing. I hope it's not what we're submitting to, because we believe there's so many. I mean, we're here at a national tournament at age group, and there's so many good young coaches and athletes at age group. There has to be a way that just, again, taking a small portion of those that Coach Lindland is talking about and moving them towards Greco, whether they follow Greco exclusively or whether they follow a dual pathway through the scholastic system as Greco as well. Either way, but if we could keep them engaged in Greco, even a small portion would move the needle in Greco, because we've got so many great wrestling athletes in America.
Is Greco in competition with freestyle then?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know that. I think that I would like to believe that those two can coexist, because that's what we're after, right? USA Wrestling wants to see both styles succeed, and I think that you know, and there's so much play there about that folk style wrestling blends so well with freestyle, and it's the leg attack part. But if we go into basic wrestling and fighting skills and efficiency, we have so many athletes that we could point to that walk off of freestyle and walk right onto a Greco mat and do extremely well. So it's a matter of just, again, keeping those athletes into a dual pathway for as long as possible, and then letting them make a choice on which way they go.
Looking at it positionally, what's the one area that the United States needs to improve to turn the corner and start winning medals at the World Championships and Olympic Games?
Most of our work currently in our training sessions have been centered around, you know, hand fight to the point where we can get good enough to hold position and take ground. Because by taking ground, then we get on top. But the real issue, as we've talked about so much, is parterre, right? And so being able to defend, and when you defend in parterre in Greco, we were talking about a hydra. That's what you have to be able to defend 3 different positions with each movement, it seems like. And so multiple attacks are coming at you from the top position, and we have to just get better and better. But part of that also is us getting better as a nation to where we can attack 3 attacks, create 3 different attacks on one set of movements. So from top, because now the rest of us have to defend those, and that's going to prep us for world competition better. So we've spent a great deal of time in parterre, both defensively and offensively. The thought that one over the other, we don't know if we're there now. We're more in line with, we've got to get better on top so we can get better on bottom as well.
And you're studying fencing to cross over to Greco, is that right?
Well, I'm looking, as you know, about each time we talk, I've looked at another area, but I have looked at fencing recently because of just their foot positioning and what they're trying to do with their lead leg. And I just looked at fencing and said, man, their ability to leave their lead leg forward and be able to go forward and backward probably more efficiently than any other athlete that I know. And so I wanted to learn more about that part of it, to where I could work with, athletes, especially at age group, where we could get them leading with that lead leg to where their back step is simply a reaction to pressure coming back at them. And the athlete that they're taking on, the competitor they're taking on, normally doesn't even feel that shift.
I'll end with this. You're a big wrestling fan, and so is your wife, Dorothy.
Yes.
Who's a bigger wrestling fan, you or Dorothy?
That's a good one. I'm so fortunate to be her partner. I mean, it's one of those things where she has, as you know, a true passion for the sport at all levels and all styles. And so that part of it, I don't know. I mean, now that I'm more centered in the world of Greco, only maybe I've taken a step back there, and maybe she's back to being on center point with that, because she's still looking at all three styles evenly.
Gary Mayabb, appreciate the time.
Thank you very much.